Hey, what's going on? This is the Political Brown Kid here. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know much about the arrest of Sean Combs and what's in there, but the thing that I do kind of know is this. I know that the judge just denied him bail because they're basically saying that he's a threat, that he can intimidate witnesses. I think that was what they were saying. And so they denied his $50 million bond, which I found to be interesting, to say the least. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Well, I'm not going to leave it at that. I'm going to talk about that. Listen, my personal opinion is this. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Unless there were some young minors involved in this, if there were some minors that were involved and he knew willingly that they were minors, because let's just be honest, there are a lot of minors who will lie. There are a lot of women who are 17 or even men, but I'm just going to say, I know for a fact because I've dealt with women who've tried to lie to make themselves older when I was younger. I'm being honest with you. When I was, one time I think I was 18, and my a neighbor of mine, a granddaughter, the neighbor lived a couple of houses down, and she came over periodically, and one day she just kind of asked me for my number. You know, she kind of came over and got the courage to ask me for my number. And I'm not going to lie, this girl was fine. This girl was really fine and had a nice little body on her. And so she and I talked on the phone a couple of times. You know, they're going to tell you what you want to hear, tell you that she's a virgin, she's saying all this stuff. And so I had just happened to talk to one of our other friends, you know, who know the family and know the girl. And the girl's 16, but she told me that she was 18. I'm not making this up. And she wasn't a virgin. And come to find out, so I had stopped calling her. So I kind of, waned off. I just got, how you let something just kind of die off. She calls you, you don't really call her, and then that other person just kind of gets the message and it dies off. But we were still cordial after that. There was no hard feelings. When I'd see her when she'd go to her grandmother's house, I'd wave to her, she waved to me. We'd speak. But then come to find out, a couple of months later, she pops up pregnant. She has her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was in his mid-20s. Family didn't mind, so they let it go. But I'm saying all that to say this, is that people will lie on you. So a lot of these young people that they talk about are being trafficked and extorted. A lot of these people are. And that's the one leverage that females, I told y'all, men, we're in a culture that is dominated by females. And I don't know why females continue to say that we're in a patriarchy. It has obviously been a matriarchy, because go ask any pro athlete, if that pro athlete is accused of domestic violence against their spouse, without even a jury, there's no due process involved. They don't get due process. The job is going to come to them. If they're in the MMA, the MMA is going to come to them and say, you're suspended. Ask Michael Irving. Michael Irving got into an argument with a female that worked at a restaurant, and charges were brought against him. He was immediately kicked off, and he couldn't even do the Super Bowl or do the playoff broadcast. And then it comes to find out that I think he didn't do what they claimed that he did. There's no retribution for these females. So I'm saying that to say this, in Puffy's situation, if he willingly knew that the girl was underage, if there were underage girls involved, then yeah, he should get time for that. But they're talking about, from what I heard, was 3 life sentences on the table. Once again, people, this is a witch hunt, and it's a witch hunt against black men. I'm telling y'all that it's a witch hunt probably against all men, but I'm going to say more particularly black men, because when you see black men get into these crimes, because this is kind of similar to Bill Cosby, and even though I will say Bill Cosby probably should have gone to jail 30 years ago, but the thing is that if no one's bringing up any complaints, and then all of a sudden they want to fast forward 30 years later and start bringing up stuff, like the Bill Cosby trial was actually very interesting, and it was very malicious what they did to Bill Cosby. And I'm not trying to say that Bill Cosby did anything wrong. And I have to talk about Bill Cosby before I talk about Sean Combs, and I'll make Bill Cosby's story short. The problem with the Bill Cosby situation was this. They I think he did a deposition, and they told him, the prosecutors and his legal team, they had worked out a deal to say, You can admit to certain things in this deposition. It's not going to be held or used against you. And even before that, the problem that I had was the female, and it was a white female. I'm telling you, all these white females, they're something special. They are the devils in disguise. The white female in question that actually got him locked up, I do believe, now this is just according to my memory, I'm just freestyling here, but from what I do remember, this female, the incident happened years ago, but she was still contacting him for like jobs and, to use his, using him as a connection so she could, get work in, the entertainment business or what have you. And then all of a sudden, these crimes, then she brings up the charges against him again. And then he did the deposition where he was supposed to be able to admit to certain things and not be used against them. But lo and behold, they used it against him in the court, and he went straight to jail. And mind you, this man, when he went to jail, I think he was in his 80s. He was blind in one eye, or blind, legally blind. He went to jail, and he sat in jail for, I think, maybe a year or two before they overturned it, which because he shouldn't have never gone to jail in the first place, but they wanted to make him pay. They wanted to make him pay because he's a black man. Now, contrast that with a white woman, I forget her name, but the Emmett Till's accuser coming out and admitting that, hey, yeah, I may have embellished or fabricated some charges. And then, matter of fact, it was some black people, I think it was a black guy, could have been a black woman, I don't know, some black people though, that was trying to get her locked up. Once she made that statement, there were black people calling the police department saying, what are you guys going to do about her? And the police said, we're doing nothing. So I'm doing a contrast to say, this is how they treat black people, particularly black men, when they've committed crimes 20 and 30 years ago. And this is how they treat everyone else. So looking at Sean Combs' situation, from what I gather, these were all willing participants. And even with these sex workers, and I'm going to use that word because that's exactly what they are. Even with these adult workers, you're willing participant. None of these people, don't act like these people are victims. These people only become victims when they get caught. And that's women particularly. Because unfortunately, and I'm not trying to beat up on women, but the reality from my perspective is this: women, in order to get out of a particular situation, will lie. Men will more or less likely snitch. They're just going to go to jail and they're just going to start snitching on people. You can see it. All of the major criminals, they'll go to jail and they'll just start snitching. But women will say, no, I'm just going to lie. Because they particularly work in like the adult industry, the sex industry. And so they'll just say, oh, my boyfriend or my so-and-so, he trafficked me. He forced me to participate in providing these services to other men and women. And then they start making this stuff up. And I'm not trying to say all of them make it up, but enough of them do, where you really have to say, is this really true? They'll lie and say, they'll sleep with a person and then come back and say it wasn't consensual. If they feel as though they made a mistake, or they felt as though, whatever, they regretted whatever actions that they did the other night, they do this type of stuff. So when you look at the Sean Combs situation, here's a man's bail set at $50 million. And they're like, nope, we're not even going to give him bail because Puffy was asking for house arrest. And they don't want to do that because they're afraid that he's going to intimidate witnesses. Now that may or may not be true, but it's like, well, why does he get denied bail? And so they're just holding him in jail until his court case comes up. And then he's looking at 3 life sentences. And I'm just trying to figure out 3 life sentences. Once again, fellas, I'm telling y'all this. You're living in the age of a woman. And whenever you do something harmful against a woman, they're going to take those charges and amp those charges up by 10. Now, I've known people, because trust me, like I said, I've grown up in Southeast DC. If you know Southeast DC, it's a rough side. I've known murderers. I'm talking about serious people who've committed very violent crimes. They don't get that much time. You may see them pull 15 years, maybe 20. And here it is, you're talking about people who participated willingly at a party. You're talking about workers, adult workers, who participate in that adult sex industry, willingly participating and getting paid for their services to appear at a party, and now everyone's a victim. Even if, and I take back too, and I've even said Cassie, she was, domestic violence. People should not lay. I've always stated that people should not lay hands on other people. But I'm going to say this: Cassie dang sure stayed for a long time. So obviously the beatings weren't that bad. They weren't enough for her to make her leave. If you hit, I knew one girl once that I was talking to. She said this one guy, and he didn't even really hit her. I think he shoved her from when we were talking. She said, I packed my stuff up and left. I said, I packed my stuff up and left. The relationship's over at that point in time. You put your hands on me, I'm gone. And that was her stance on that. But yet you have, here's Cassie, because she's flying around the world, she's living out her dream. You're willing to stay and take some butt whoopings. And then she left Puffy. Mind you, she left, I think, in the early, 2009, 2010, something like that, because she got married. She married a white guy. She got married. I don't know if she's still married or not, but she gets married. She's married, so Puffy's out of her life. He's moved on to a new woman. He's dating Young Miami. He's dating some Asian girl that he got pregnant again. And he's moved on with his life. She's moved on with her life. And then all of a sudden, 9 years later, after you're married or left Puffy, now you want to come at him saying that you're traumatized and you're suing. Because the court statute of limitation in New York, I think they were trying to close. You have to look at it that there was an expiration date. Of course, that's why everybody started coming out with their lawsuits during this particular time. And so everybody has their hand out. Now you want to get paid. And now you want to talk about, I had to have, intimate encounters with, adult male workers that he hired. You couldn't say no? I'm just trying to figure out, were you locked up in the basement and only brought out to perform sex acts and eat? I have no idea. But she obviously, and from what you can see, she's obviously was moving around the world freely. So I'm not giving her, anything on that. Now, if you want to talk about the abuse and the assault, then yeah. The abuse and assault. Also, too, these parties. I mean, okay. He hired some workers. They were having a good time. If they did narcotics at the party, okay. But what I'm trying to figure out is, how does this equal up to 3 triple life sentences? What they're trying to do is bury this man. And that's my point. At most, I could see them giving this dude maybe 1 or 2 years. At most, at best. But to be honest with you, I see no harm, no foul, because I see a whole bunch of people who willingly participated in a party. And like I said, unless you want to show me that there were some minors that were floating around in this party that were, these type of workers, and that he willingly knew that these people were minors, that's the only thing that'll change my mind on that. So this is just my thought on the whole situation. But once again, black men, you are under the gun. You literally are. You're under the gun. Because they're bringing out all kind of charges against y'all. I even stood my personal opinion on the R. Kelly thing. It's kind of like some of these people, man, like they interviewed literally for the R. Kelly thing. They were saying that these women were, listen, just because somebody has programmed, you know how many men have had their minds programmed? Who was it? Was it Doug Christie? I think it was Doug Christie in the NBA. He used to have to, I think after every bucket, he would kind of do some little symbol on the court with his hands, a gesture, and I think it was to his wife. And everybody talked about how his wife, I think it was Doug Christie. Don't think it was Matt Barnes, but I think it was Doug Christie. Matt Barnes a little too gangster for that. Matt Barnes straight out the streets of South Central Watts. He from somewhere. He from Chicago or something. I don't know where he from. But I think it was Doug Christie. But people don't talk about, like, when they talk about mind control, it's always a man manipulating a woman. But people manipulate other people. Like I told y'all, look it up. I think it was Doug Christie and his wife had him under some control. Um, and I could be wrong on the Doug Christie thing, so I don't hold me to Doug Christie. But again, with the R. Kelly thing, everyone was saying that these girls was locked up, they were this, they were that. And then TMZ had them walking down the street shopping and talk. It was two females. Y'all can look at the videos. The two females, they just walking through Chicago shopping, doing whatever it is they doing. Then they were staying at a hotel by themselves, the two women. They were staying here, they were staying there. One female even admitted that she was sleeping with the younger one, and the one female was of age, and she was sleeping with the minor female. But you don't see that female doing time. She admitted that she had a sexual encounter with the young female, but you don't see her going to jail. And also, too, the parents were contacting the girl, and the girl did not want to come home. People don't get it. When do people just start to say that sometimes you just have some dumb, bad kids? There are a lot of kids that run away from home at 13, 15, 16, thinking that they're grown. You have some people, like I told y'all, they'll lie about their age just to get into a club or to date a man that they want to date. Matter of fact, I was talking to one of my exes, and she was telling me all the men that she liked, they were, when she was 16, she dated 22-year-olds. She chose to do that. She chose to do that. And then she even told me that these men meant nothing to her. She didn't care nothing about them. All she wanted was what she could get from them. So at what point in time do you start holding her accountable? And people just want to say just because she's 16, they just try to use this number like at 18, all of a sudden now a light bulb switches off and now you're adult and you're conscious to make great decisions. No, you can make great decisions at 13, 14, and 15. You know what's right and what's wrong. And these people chose to get into a lifestyle, and they were probably blinded by being in the entertainment industry or being around famous people, and they made dumb mistakes. So you have to chalk it up to that. And I'll stand by that. So this is the Political Brown Kid. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Also hit the like and subscribe. I'm out of here.